Personal power, and why the leadership secret hides in plain sight. The power you already have, but don't know it. Personal power has absolutely nothing to do with your title, your salary, or even your position. It's about your belief in your own capabilities to create impact. This episode breaks down the 3 foundations of personal power and how a simple 4-minute exercise can almost double your success rate for high-stakes situations. This is a good one you aren't going to want to miss. Welcome to Legacy Lounge, the podcast where you'll discover how to lead with purpose and build a legacy that matters. So if you're ready to step into your full potential, show up authentically for yourself and others, and create a lasting impact on the world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Legacy Lounge. I'm Brin'na, and today I want to talk about something that completely shifted my own perspective on leadership influence. I had listened to a Harvard Business Review podcast about personal power, and it made me realize that we've been thinking about workplace power completely wrong. Personal power isn't about your title. It's not about your salary. It's not even where you sit within the org chart of your company. But it is about your own capabilities to create impact and your own belief in those capabilities. Here's the most fascinating part, though. When you yourself truly and wholeheartedly believe in that capability, you radiate qualities that others see in you as leadership material. So to break this down, there are 3 foundations of what personal power looks like. The first is your sense of control. Even when you can't control everything, and let's be real, most of the time you can't. You can always control your response. You can always find the angle, and you do have influence when you understand the angle that you can come from. I learned this the hard way at Target. There were so many policies that I couldn't change, and so many decisions that were made way above my pay grade. But I could control how I communicated those decisions to my team. I could control how I supported them through some of the most challenging changes I had ever experienced. And I could control the culture where I was able to create influence within my own sphere of a team. The second is the internal orientation. This one means responding to your inner compass instead of the external validation. Sound familiar? Focusing on your own goals instead of everyone else's approval. That is a huge, humbling eye-opener, if you will, and was for me in my corporate career. I spent years trying to be the absolute perfect leader that everyone wanted me to be. But magnetic leadership happens when you lead from your values as a human, not from what you think will make people like you. The third foundation is to focus on the action. When you choose to move forward based on your values and your vision, and you don't wait for the conditions to be perfect, nor the permission, that's where things get really interesting. The research through this Harvard Business Review actually showed a 4-minute exercise that can almost double success rates in the high-stakes situations. So before your next important meeting, presentation, or even a difficult conversation, test yourself with this and write down your top 3 values. Pick one and then spend 4 minutes writing about why that value is important in your life. Not in the situation at hand, but in your life. And walk into that room focused on the bigger picture. What happens is that you show up internally orientated. You're grounded in what matters to you, and people subconsciously evaluate you as more effective and capable when you show up this way. So I want to share a story that actually illustrates this in real time. Bob Iger. If you haven't heard of him, he's worth a Google, but he had a career at ABC Sports. Yes, the same Bob Iger, who then later became the CEO of Disney. There was a massive screw up. The head of the company was furious screaming at a room full of executives, "Whose fault is this?" And everybody stayed silent. Everyone was trying to protect themselves, distance themselves from failure, and just not move so that they didn't set this explosive moment off worse than it was already happening in front of their eyes. But at this time, Bob Iger was the most junior person in the room. And you know what he chose to do? Raise his hand. And he said, "That was me." The boss stared at him and then moved on. But from that day forward, he treated Bob with respect, more respect. Why? Because taking responsibility signals control. It says, I have power over the situation. And also, I made a mistake, but it's within my power to now fix it. I own it and I fix it. Compare that to blame or deflection, which signals, I had no control over the situation. I'm just the messenger. Crazy, right? Well, here's one more power move for your next meeting. If you want to increase your influence without being the expert in the room, become the moderator. Guide the flow of the conversation. Ask the question, what do you think? And then actually listen and synthesize the ideas. Write things on the whiteboard. Help move the entire group forward. But remember, the person with the most power is not the one in the spotlight. It is the person controlling that spotlight. So here's a personal power audit that you can ask yourself. Am I focused on my goals rather than others' approval? I encourage you with this one to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you making decisions based off what you really believe is right or what you think that will make people like you? Question 2, do I take responsibility or do I oftentimes deflect blame? Again, be radically realistic with yourself. When something goes wrong, is it your first instinct to protect yourself because that's normal? Or is it more normal and a default to own your part, especially when you made a mistake? Question 3, am I waiting for permission or creating my own path? This one I love. Are you waiting for someone to give you the green light, or are you moving forward based on your own values? Another question. Do I guide conversations or just participate in them? Think about that. Are you actively shaping the direction of discussions, or are you just responding to what others say? Here's one thing I know for sure is that you already have way more power than you might think. You don't need a promotion or a bigger title and responsibility scope or even external validation to start leading with impact. But in order to start leading with impact, you yourself have to believe in your own capabilities to create the change you want to see. Then you act on that belief. So your challenge this week is to pick one situation where maybe you've been waiting for permission or even worse, validation. But instead, choose to show up with internal orientation. Focus on your values, take responsibility, and guide the conversation towards a helpful solution. It's already yours. The world right now especially needs leaders who understand that real power comes from within ourselves. It comes from your values, from your vision, and from your willingness to take responsibility for creating the change that you want to see. Head over to legacyfulfilled.com. I would love to help you step into more of your own personal power. I'm Brin'na, and I'll catch you next week. That's it for this episode of Legacy Lounge, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to lead with purpose. Remember, leadership begins with you. When you're connected to your values, strengths, and authentic self, you show up powerfully for your team, businesses, and everyone you lead. To authentically lead others, you must first lead yourself. I challenge you to consider, how are you investing in your personal growth to create a legacy that you envision? Thank you for joining me in the Legacy Lounge. If this episode sparked any thoughts or inspired action, I'd love to hear from you. I'm your host, Brin'na Rollins-Williams. Connect with me on LinkedIn or other socials, and let's continue the conversation. Remember, your legacy is built one intentional step at a time.